So I knew this little boy who was burnt by a stove when he was a little kid, right? He was about 2 years old, and he got burnt by the hot water that was on the stove. From that event, he had third-degree burns, right? Fast forward to today, this young man is about 30 years old, and he was talking about cooking him something to eat, right? As this boy became a teenager, I would see him in the kitchen cooking and making him some meals when he got hungry, and he was just so into the meal and making it right and making the plate look good and everything. And even still to this day, being a young adult as a 30-year-old man about that age range, he still does the cooking thing, right? And he actually takes pride in cooking his meals now. So I say all of that to say this. Even though when he was a child, he got burnt and got third-degree burns, that experience and that moment that happened to him did not stop him from wanting to learn how to cook. Imagine a child growing up not wanting to cook because they got burnt by the stove as a toddler. Think about a time where you have told a child, don't play by that stove. No, 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 don't play by the stove. And they still want to play by the stove until something happens that causes them to hurt themselves. But guess what? That child never stopped playing. The child just knew boundaries now of where to play close to, right? So the child didn't stop playing. The child stopped playing by the stove. I say all of that to say this. A lot of times we can live in our mind with past regrets that's preventing us from living in the full moment, experience the joy. A lot of times past situations could cause us to live in regret. And we hold on to that negative attachment that's attached to the past. We don't know how to move forward, right? So we live in this fear that that situation may play out the same way. So we choose not to take action at all. We stop playing. Instead, we live in our mind, replaying that event over and over and over again, right? And then we conjure up those emotions. We attach ourselves to those emotions every single time we relive that moment. Right now, at this present moment, you are not experiencing what happened to you in the past. What you're doing is reconnecting your thoughts to the past so that you can relive that emotion. And that's what's keeping us in a negative mindset, right? So a great word for today is to kind of be like a child. Even though a child has gotten burnt by a stove, they don't stop living life. They still go after learning how to cook. And usually they don't even remember the experience. Their subconscious does. Why? Because the subconscious doesn't forget anything. But they choose not to keep it in the forefront of their mind. And that's the difference between holding on to the emotions that's attached with that past traumatic event that you experienced. I'm not saying to let it go as far as the experience. It happened, yes. But at this point, we have to learn to accept responsibility for our part that we play. You can't change the past, so stop suffering unnecessarily. Accept the actions and consequences of your past. Take responsibility for them and focus on what you can do now to improve your circumstance as well as yourself. 2 ways you can do that is by giving yourself compassion and offering yourself forgiveness for what happened to you, but also setting up boundaries so that you can continue to live in the present moment fully without having to go back and keep reliving that moment in that negative space. I'm quite sure what happened to you hurt to your core. But every time you relive it, you open up them same wounds. Every time you live in regret, you open up that same wound. Every time you live in fear, you open up that old wound. So why suffer unnecessarily? You're putting yourself through more trauma every time you reopen old wounds. So develop self-acceptance and start seeing those situations as learning points. What could you take from that learning point to grow? Failure is inevitable, so you gotta go through failure in order to learn how to do something the right way. Our imperfections is really the perfection that God created us in to separate us from Him, to say that He is made perfect. We're only made perfect in His image. We're humans though, so give yourself grace. and really focus on this present moment, the one right here. Think about, how do you feel in this moment? Think about the smells that's around you. Think about what you can see around you. Engulf yourself in this present moment. You're not experiencing any pain as of right now. The only pain you're experiencing is the pain that you keep reliving. Either way, let's all choose to grow.